Fuzzy Gloves here. I'm wearing a hat. Today we're going to be talking about different types of delays. And it's not as crazy as reverb. There's a little bit of a difference though. So, okay. Now the most basic straightforward delay is you have a delay. It uses a feedback loop of some kind and it repeats your thing. So it goes, so if I said, it would go said, and then we have all these different controls when we're doing this. So I'm just going to show you some various plugins that you have options to do this with. And in the mix, I've already shown you an example in the last video on the one with reverb. It was, hey, look at all these different things we could do to create a sense of space. We don't always need to use reverb. And delay is sometimes a stylistic thing as well. You're always going to want to check with your artist if you're mixing for someone else, though, if they're cool with you slapping delay in a very like upfront way. So here we've got an instance of, well, let's start with the simple one. So here we have an instance of Fruity Delay 2. And the oldest delay is the tape delay, probably. I'm pretty sure that's the oldest one. And you just configure your tape machine in a way so that through a loop so that it plays back your thing over and over and over. And so this thing is sort of like that, only it has a couple other extra options. And delays will give you, they can really throw you a bunch of things you can do. So here I've got just a regular sound, and it sounds like this with nothing on it. And you see here that our delay is not on in here. We also have a delay in here, which is very similar sort of what this is. Gives us a couple different options. But what's cool about delays is they also give us the option to go into Haas effect territory as well. So we'll talk about that in just a second. So we could set our delay time, and then in this case, it works off a sort of a step ratio principle. So we're not going to worry about that because like in other plugins, like for example, the dynamic delay, this thing uses you could change the sync in a very similar way, or you can change it to milliseconds. So sort of a cool deal. But this guy, what happens is audio gets sent in there. It goes through a loop, and then so we have control over two things. So we have our initial delay, and then we have our regular delay. So our feedback is the volume of the loop as it comes in, the feedback. It's not actually the first delay. The first delay is controlled by this guy. So we could take this guy and turn him up, and we could turn our feedback off. And if we play a delay, we'll go ahead and make this sort of a long delay, or a step of 4, so it's not long. So you see, there's our delay. It's one delay. It's very simple. Most straightforward delay you can probably have. Then we could toss in this thing called the feedback loop. This will take this delay and keep looping it. And if we turn our volume all the way up, it will turn into a very unpleasant experience. That's something you need to be careful of when you're dealing with delays. It's how high your feedback volume is up. But if we turn it up, so we see it continues on and on and on. And it gets softer as we go. Unless we have our delay where it gets gained up every time it goes through, then we'll create an infinite feedback loop, which is that unpleasant experience. They also add for you the option to actually low pass your signal. So we could like only have the low end be delayed. So see, that would sound farther away because we've taken away the high end. It's very useful. Now other ones will give you like a whole bunch more filter options, but this one's just a low pass. But you can create very simple effects like higher frequencies rolled off. That naturally happens through air, so it sounds like it's moving away. So it would be a very useful tool. We also have different ways of the feedback being panned. So we can make it go between speakers. Inverted and ping pong are options for this. Like ping pong will go back and forth. But in order for this to work, our feedback has to have some panning on it. Otherwise, it won't work. So if we like pan our input, so you can hear it going back and forth between the two. And then invert will simply flip the relationship. So if it was there, if we were to pan it the other way, and now it's inverted. And if we were to return it to normal, you see, so let's just do some extreme. So we'll go that side. Okay, now we'll invert it. And you see it jump to the other side. I didn't even have to do anything. You didn't even have to play new sounds. So anyways, that's what's going on with these different modes. And this is a very common thing. Your timing is very, very important with delays. You generally want it to be in time with your song because then it makes sense where it lands. However, every now and then you don't want it to be in time because you're doing something that sounds a little more random. Maybe you're going for a little more noise. A multi-tap delay could be very useful for something like this. We also have this guy right here. He's called our offset knob. And what it does is it puts a delay between our left speaker and our right speaker. We're going to be talking about this a little bit later. But this delay can create a stereo effect for us. So let's go ahead and just write out a simple line. So here we have our line. This is what it sounds like without the delay and with no offset. Sorry. Here it is with the delay. Now let's add let's turn down this. Let's just turn that down. And so you see, okay, so that's what we got. And then we're going to go ahead and turn this, and so that there's a 0.5 millisecond delay from the left to the right. suddenly we have a stereo signal. We're able to place it in a space. And so we can use this, maybe make it more extreme, 3 milliseconds. And so that is pretty cool. It's just a timing difference. It's all it is. Now, something to keep in mind is if this gets some back down to mono and you're doing something like this, you could wind up with some very interesting phase relationships. We can do that by simply, where's my channel strip? It's over here. We're going to simply make it 100% merged. And so now it's going to be made stereo through a delay between the left and the right, but then we're going to merge it back to mono in our channel strip. So we're going to end up with some phasing. So you see how it sounds kind of thin now? We can change that relationship by moving this. And if we reduce it back, put it back to its normal value, it's in phase, so it's loud again. But if we move it off just a touch, it's actually softer than it was before. Oh, you see, and that phase relationship sounds a little funny. So if you don't get that, what's happening is we have these phases, right? We have a signal coming like this and like this. And when we put a time delay, it's going to move the phase. It's basically going to create a phase shift as it shifts over a little bit between the two speakers. If we're listening in stereo, that's fine because we have two separate ears. But if it goes to the same signal, so it gets summed back together, the difference is going to cause a comb filter effect as it sums back together. So this is very powerful from a sound designing perspective. The same thing happens when you move into, that's called, now this delay right here is referred to as the Haas effect. It's a delay that happens so fast that we actually can't hear the delay. If we put our delay up to 500 milliseconds, that's going to be 5-second delay from the left to the right, and we will hear an obvious delay. Let us reset this, and so check this out. This is going to be super audible. So now we're having a serious problem with our left and right. It's like sort of disorienting to listen to. And that's because we can hear that. So you want to delay generally within 20 milliseconds or below. You can actually extend the Haas effect out if the sound has a longer transient. So if it's like a violin sound that gets, longer transient, something that gets loud slowly. So it goes, and then it's very sustained. That sort of a sound you'll be able to delay it more and it will be less noticeable than you would a very short sound like what we're messing with. The other thing is we have this here timing control, right? And this timing control, if we move it into very fast ranges, we'll get a similar effect. The delay will happen so fast that it will actually comb filter itself. And if we turn up, so you can hear it, if we change this length, so you can hear the difference there. This will be easier to control with something that gives us a millisecond option, and it's way more straightforward. So we're going to mess with that next. But anyways, I covered that in the critical listening series as well. But we're going to be looking at this relationship later on a little bit more. So anyways, that's like our first delay, right? So we have just a regular delay, and then we move on to our next delay. Here we've got this is Isotope Trash 2, and it's got a really cool delay module built into it. And we have tape, analog, lo-fi, digital, broken bit, and digital. And they have different feedback loops. And you might be going, and we also have various other settings that we're not going to deal with. This width setting is similar to what we were just messing with in the Fruity Delay 2. And what's cool is they have all these different modeling, and this feedback control will respond differently. Because obviously, if you're feedbacking in like a modern digital environment, it's not going to do the same thing as if you were to loop a tape. So this is just sort of a really curious thing. We can also host sync this as well, as you can see, so we can link it up. And if we go ahead and we're going to leave our delay at 200 milliseconds or whatever, well, we'll host sync it. We'll put it down to 4. And what we're going to do now is mess with the delay and check it out. So it's the same exact principle. Just ignore these other ones. If you own Isotope Trash 2, I have a series on it if you're curious. It's in the playlist of my channel. And what we have here is, so we're just going to mess with these and show you how the feedback responds differently. Over here, well, let me show you the Fruity Delay 2 first. So over here, we're going to move our delay back up to we'll move it to 4. And then we're going to increase the volume on the feedback, and it will just get louder. It won't do anything crazy. And you see we have a delay loop that is way too loud. So sometimes people will use that as an effect, but you want to be careful about that. One more time. I just can't say that enough because, man, I've had some experiences with that. And so now we're going to compare it against Trash 2. And there. So this is the tape modeling version of delay. So you see, it sounds very like the other one didn't do that. It just got louder. This thing will distort and stuff. So it gives you some really cool creative options. Other delays that I didn't grab one, but there's, where is it? It's the Valhalla one. What's cool about this, guys, you can pitch shift your delay. So we can actually move it around. We're going to take our delay up to like, I don't know, 135 milliseconds or something. Turn our feedback up. So that's really cool. This is covered in the free plugins playlist if you're curious about this delay. So this is actually a free one. And yeah, so sometimes they include like really wacky options in the feedback loop that you can mess with. If we go to the tape tube and just check out how this one sounds different as we increase the feedback. So you see, and then again, this changes with the effects. So we're setting very transient things. They'll sound a bit different when we send in longer sounding things. We go to analog. See, that one's got a very different sound. In this case, it's more pleasant than the first two. And then we have like a lo-fi, broken bit, and a digital. But you get the idea. They're different. They do different things when you increase them. So that's pretty cool. The next up, we have something called a multi-tap delay. And a multi-tap delay is really nifty because what you can do is you can have a separate delay coming into each one of these. And I've used this a couple times, and I will automate things on my delay to make it really organic and really cool, complicated type thing. But you notice we have the same similar options that we had in the Fruity Delay 2. It should be expected it's in the same DAW. And so what's cool about this is you can actually send your delay into another unit and have it go through like 2 stages of delay, and they could each be outputting something individually. And so I have a whole series on how this works because it can get quite complicated, but it's really, really cool, really nifty thing. And you can actually filter them differently. And like you can have 4 doing a separate thing than 1, and 1 could be feeding 2, and 4 could be feeding 5, and 7 could be receiving its own thing. So you get very, very complicated sounds very quickly. And so I, again, cover that in the FL12 effects series. I'm not going to delve into it here because it is kind of a dense topic. And lastly, we have one more delay by Isotope, and they also give you various options for, well, it's made by the same people who made Trash 2. So they give you similar options to, you know, the way you deal with feedback, how you do your delay. It actually moves between 2 delays, and you can filter split your stuff, and it's really just a curious thing. But here you can, it's much easier to set your millisecond time. So if we wanted to like cause effect stuff, then we could just do it here and it'd be really simple. So if we wanted to like really mess with our signal, we'll turn this on, turn the feedback up. Oh, and this has got to be down because this thing works as it processes all the signal above it. So you'll notice as I approach 20 milliseconds, you'll be able to peel it apart. So now you can hear a delay, but if we go back, it's pretty hard to hear a delay there if we go down even further. So this could be really, really useful for just creating some interesting phase relationships as well. But delays, that's just the different delay types. So basically multi-tap, and then there's just your regular delay. And then the options they throw in there can vary because, you know, you could slap a reverb unit in the middle of your feedback loop and do crazy stuff. So different delays will give you different options. And maybe they resample it in an unusual way, filter out samples. Maybe they just do weird stuff. Like, it's completely up to you on how you want to deal with this. That's a little bit about delays. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.